Welcome back to Vill Famiglia, everybody. It is Erik with Sprucehill Homes, back to bring you another installment of awesomeness that's happening at this address. So I will admit that our production at this site is not as fruitful as we had hoped it was going to be this week. Unfortunately, we decided that it was more important to give the excavation contractor free rein to get everything on site all cleaned up, moved around and organized so that we can bring back our framing crew next week and just destroy this job site. So there's still lots of stuff happening here, just not the framing that I had hoped when I was here last week. So let's stop talking about what's happening and go check it out. Come on, let's go. We are here on the dirt side of what will be a future stairwell. So actually, if I was standing in here, that would be standing on the future stairs, but I'm not. I'm standing over here. And why am I doing that? I thought today we might talk about forming. So this is paper face ply, also called Creezone. It's just plywood, but it's got one side that is smooth like butter. So the guys will coat this in canola oil, corn oil, something like that anyways. Back in the day, they used to use diesel fuel, but nowadays we use like canola oil or something like that. There's also stuff called form release, but honestly, like canola oil just works just as well. And that'll help to make sure that when we pour the concrete, when we pull this plywood off the concrete, it leaves a really nice smooth finish on this side. So what makes up a form? Well, we've got, in this case, these are snap ties. This is custom forms. So we've got snap ties, cone ties, whatever you want to call them. They're called cone ties because they have cones in them. And so what will happen on this side, there'll be another layer of plywood on this side, and then the concrete gets poured in the middle, and that's what holds it all together. So of course, the other thing that we do a lot of here on the West Coast, where we're in the earthquake zone, is a lot of rebar, and that gets all tied off, and that's all spec'd by the engineers. Cone tie, hole, because this has got to go over top. It needs to be 9/16. You don't want it to be much bigger than that because it has to be just big enough for this piece to fit through the hole, but also small enough so that when the cone tie is up against it, the cone tie doesn't push through. I'm not going to say I ever did anything like that, but there might have been a time or two when I used a hole that was possibly too big and the cone ties kind of started to show their way through. That was many, many years ago. But you know what? That's why you hire pros, right? We've already made those mistakes. We've already screwed up a lot of different ways. And so, you know, you live and you learn. Now, the other thing that I'm holding in my hand is a whaler clamp. Holy smokes. It shows what when you're out of the game for a long time, you forget all this stuff. So what'll happen is this will go on like that. And then there'll be a 2x4 like this. Now this is a double whaler tie. This is single. And what makes it a single is you can see like there's only one 2x4 here. Here, because of the length of this, we'll have another 2x4 here. And then this guy goes on top of here. And because it's kind of got like a wedge to it, you just take your hammer, bang that sucker in, and it sucks it nice and tight. And that's what makes sure everything stays together and looks good. The guys will put a nail through that hole here to hold it, like usually kind of ends up roughly around there. Put a nail in there to hold it in place because you can imagine, hopefully, that when the concretes get put in here, it's a lot of weight. And then they throw a vibrator down here and that shakes the living bejesus out of this whole thing. And so if you don't have these things secure, they can just kind of work their way out. And once they get to that, everything just falls apart. Bad things happen. I have seen it where people have not done enough whalers. This is called a whaler. This will be what's called a strong back. And the reason why is because, do we have anything that's long enough? I should have like brought more props here. But this guy will go like this. And that guy will go across, bunk, 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 like one longer piece will go, let's get that right. That'll go like that. Okay? Okay. And then what will happen is here, there'll be another set of 2x4s going up and down like that. And why we want that is because that'll help us to control the in and out of the form. And we can make sure that we get the sucker nice and plumb. So double whaler, single whaler. So this is like this is what it'll look like on the other side once Harrison's buttoned up the other side. Got these two suckers here. it gets all sandwiched together. You got 2 more here, and this is that strong back that I was talking about, right? And that's gonna help us to control the vertical alignment of this, and this is here. And the reason why it's all doubled up and all that sort of stuff is to keep the wall straight up and down, right? We don't want our wall to look like the waves of the ocean. That'd be bad. Okay, so here we have got a bunch of different things going on. This corrugated pipe is called Big O. This is actually the stuff that used to be used for our drainage, which we now know sucks, because if you put a Roto-Rooter tool through it, it just shreds it. So we don't use this anymore, but we do use it for putting or housing other cables, pipes. In this case, 99% sure that there's a gas line inside of this sucker. So we're just double protecting it. There'll be sand going on top of this as well. And then, look at that, I'm right. Buried gas line below. So this caution tape will go on top of that. So that way when people start to dig down here, they'll find that there's buried gas below. Now, coming over here, caution, electrical line buried below. I knew that this was electrical because this is the 2 feeds coming into the house, right? One of the things, and I've talked about this in other videos and I'll talk about it again. If you're building a home with a secondary dwelling unit, put in a secondary electrical meter, right? Because that way you can put your entire secondary dwelling unit, basement suite, whatever you want to call it, you can have that all be electrical. Baseboard heating, electric hot water if you want, but then your tenant is solely responsible for whatever utilities they use. If they want to keep the basement heated like a tropical forest, they're paying for it. Whereas if you have just one meter at your home, how do you figure out who's using what, right? So putting in a secondary meter base and a secondary meter, smart move. That's why we've got 2 electrical lines going into the house. One is going to be for the primary dwelling unit, the second for the secondary dwelling unit. Now, let's keep walking down this way, shall we? What we've got here is the rainwater leader system. So this is an entry for a rainwater leader. This is drain tile. And so you can't see it because the holes are at the bottom where they should be. But if I just slide my foot across here, you can see it says PVC perforated sewer. So that is gonna be what picks up any of the groundwater that works its way down here, and that's gonna get shed to the sump that's over yonder, which we'll go check out in a second. I'm sure you probably already know this, but if you don't, really smart idea to separate out your rainwater leaders and your drain tile. Historically, and in most homes that were built with that big old crap, they had a singular system. And so you had your rainwater leaders coming off your gutters down into a pipe that was tied directly into the drain tile. So now you're taking the water off of your roof and putting it directly against your foundation wall. I mean, it really isn't rocket science to see that that's a dumb thing to do, right? Like, I mean, it's just dumb. I'm surprised it took us as long as it did to figure that out. Now, the only thing that we have not done on this garage that we typically do with our foundation walls is we typically put like a dimple membrane of some sort. We are not going hog wild on finishing the inside of this garage. It's gonna be very much used as a garage/workshop. So clients said, not worth the, although it's modest, incremental cost to put the dimple membrane on here. And it really isn't, right? We really wanna make sure we're using a dimple membrane on a home, which we've got on the main dwelling unit, but for the garage, no dimple membrane. Do I care one way or the other? No. I mean, is it best practice? Yeah. Is it the end of the world that it's not here? No. We've got both the rainwater leader and the drain tile, all that will get poured into this sump, right? That's what these pipes are here by my shin. This other third pipe that's coming along here and also exiting the sump here is the drain tile and rainwater leaders from the main house, is this pipe here. And then this outlet here has got a 90-degree elbow on it, and it's just slightly lower. Basically the way that we normally do it, the top of the outlet is at the bottom of the inlet, and that gives enough difference between the pipes to make sure that everything flows out. Why do we have a sump? Well, these rainwater leaders and possibly the drain tile can collect sediment, leaves, pine needles, and that sort of thing from the trees. Fur stuff for trees, not like from animals, okay? And that can find its way into these pipes, which will exit into here. By having this 90-degree neck down into the water, the only water that will actually be able to get into the city system is clean water. And so the whole idea is that any sediment that might be in the water will settle to the bottom of this sump, and the water, and certainly any leaves or needles or any crap like that, that won't be able to get caught because it'll be floating on the surface and it won't be able to get into the outlet. Clean water only goes into the outlet, and then it ties into the city connection, and life is good. Okay, so I was asked to come to site today to just talk about details with respect to insulating this. The game plan on this project is to put 4 inches of GPS insulation on the outside of the house. So the question became, what are we gonna do on the exterior of the chimney? Do we need to put outsulation on the chimney, which is on the outside of the home? And so I came here to check things out and see what's going on. Was just talking with Stefangelo, and I was like, well, you know what? Like, I think we could just stuff this entire cavity full of insulation and not have to worry about doing any outsulation and still achieve the same net result, because we've got almost 10 inches of depth here. So what we are gonna do, we're gonna fill this full of 1/2 inch or 1/2 pound spray foam insulation all the way to the ceiling, and now we'll be nice and warm and or cold depending on this season. But this will do all we need it to do to make sure that we have amazing performance in this wall assembly here. So, sometimes you can talk about these things on the phone or whatever else, but, frequently just getting your eyes on it and being on site is the way to go. I mean, certainly if I was out of town, we could probably have figured this out over a WhatsApp video call or FaceTime or something like that. But I was coming here anyways so that I could come and bring this lovely information to you. And so that's what I've done. So here we've got a fireplace that'll go here eventually. It is a heat shift optional fireplace, and we've talked about heat shift before. Reminder, a heat shift fireplace, it has basically ducts on the top of it that will take the heat and shift it to where you want it to go. So we can have ducts come up here and go out the sides. We can have it come out and roll out into the ceiling. We can redirect that heat wherever we want. We can also not have that. The downside of not using the heat shift is you just have to be a little bit more careful about what you put above the fireplace. With all fireplace manufacturers, there's basically like a height above the viewing pane that your mantle can start at. And then there's typically some sort of angle that it comes out at. And so, the deeper your mantle is, the higher it needs to go above the viewing pane. The other thing is, my friend Kyle is like, why in the heck is this thing not centered in this opening? And the fact of the matter is, we never center any of the TV box style things ever, because inevitably bits and bobs of the TV mount or the TV mount itself go right in the middle. And if you have this sucker in the middle, the two fight with each other. So we actually, and you, if you're doing this at home, you actually want to intentionally offset where you put this. Now, if you're really wanting to do a bang up job, you are going to make sure that you put this where the actual power cable is for your television. So if you know what television you're gonna get, just open up the spec book, look on the back side of the TV, and you can see where the power cable either is or where it gets plugged into. And then you wanna put your TV box right there. So it's usually bottom right or bottom left-ish. So in this case, we've gone bottom left-ish. But yes, always off-center with our TV boxes. If you have a second story addition you've been dreaming of, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at our phone number or at our website. We would love to be your partners in success and learn how we can support and create your dreams. In the meantime, I hope you'll like and subscribe, or like this video and subscribe to our channel. I am on a mission to become internet famous. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome. Bye now.